Listen closely. Do you hear it? The symphony of nature, vibrant and free, slowly giving way to the relentless rhythm of our modern world. The world of deadlines, notifications, and an ever-present feeling that there's always something more to do, more to achieve, more to acquire. We chase success, relentlessly pursuing a life we're told is ideal, often finding ourselves exhausted, disoriented, and silently wondering if this truly is all there is. This relentless pursuit, this feeling of being constantly on the run, is not new. Over a century and a half ago, a lone voice from the woods of Concord, Massachusetts, cut through the clamor of his own time, with an observation that resonates with profound truth even today. Henry David Thoreau, a man who chose to live deliberately, looked at society and declared, with an unshakable clarity, that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Quiet desperation. Take a moment to let those words settle. It's not the loud, dramatic outcry of despair, but rather a subtle, persistent undercurrent. A feeling that many of us carry unspoken, unnoticed, beneath the surface of our busy, smiling, seemingly successful lives. It's the hidden weight of unfulfilled dreams, the silent burden of obligations we didn't choose, the slow erosion of our spirit, as we conform to expectations that aren't truly our own. It's the constant striving, the feeling of being trapped in a cycle of working to live, only to find ourselves living to work, often without truly understanding why, or for whom. Have you ever felt it? That nagging doubt that perhaps this carefully constructed life, this constant state of busyness, isn't actually freedom, but a very subtle, sophisticated trap. A trap that keeps us from living authentically, from connecting with ourselves, and from understanding what truly matters. We accumulate possessions, we climb corporate ladders, we fill our schedules to the brim, all in the hope of finding contentment. But does it truly bring peace? Or does it merely deepen that quiet, underlying sense of unease? Thoreau believed that most of us are living lives that are far from our true potential, simply because we haven't taken the time to truly examine them. He challenged the very foundations of his society, not with revolution, but with a profound act of personal inquiry. He sought to strip away the non-essentials, to confront the fundamental facts of existence, and to discover what life truly demanded of him, rather than what society imposed. His experiment at Walden Pond was a testament to the power of deliberate living, an invitation to wake up from the slumber of convention. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to step away from the noise, the expectations, and the relentless demands of your own quiet desperation. Join us as we journey to Walden Pond, not just a physical place, but a state of mind. We will explore Thoreau's radical ideas, his timeless wisdom, and his urgent call to live deliberately, to simplify, to find freedom not in abundance, but in introspection and a renewed connection with our authentic selves. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about success, happiness, and what it truly means to live a life fully. Your escape begins now. Welcome. As we begin this exploration, my role is to be your companion, your guide, through the profound and surprisingly resonant ideas of Henry David Thoreau. In our contemporary world, saturated with digital noise, endless demands, and a dizzying pace of life, the quest for clarity, for a deeper sense of purpose, and for genuine connection can often feel overwhelming. It's precisely in this environment that Thoreau, a voice from nearly 2 centuries past, emerges as an indispensable guide, offering a powerful and refreshing counter-narrative to the relentless pressures of modern existence. He is not merely a figure confined to dusty academic texts, but a living, breathing challenge and inspiration for anyone yearning for a more deliberate, authentic, and truly meaningful life right now. Most people recognize Thoreau for his iconic 2-year, 2-month, and 2-day experiment at Walden Pond, commencing in the spring of 1845. This was not an act of misanthropy or an attempt to escape humanity. Instead, it was a deliberate, courageous withdrawal from the unthinking routines, the economic entanglements, and the pervasive societal expectations that he felt suffocated true living. With his own hands, he built a simple cabin, cultivated his own food, and dedicated himself to an intense regimen of observation, reflection, and writing. This period was far from a simplistic retreat. It was a rigorous, deeply intentional quest to strip away the non-essential, to pare life down to its barest bones, in order to unearth fundamental truths about human existence, nature, and society. Our journey through Thoreau's work will intentionally steer clear of academic pretense and dry philosophical jargon. My aim is to humanize him, to bring his insights alive in a way that feels accessible and immediately relevant. We will dissolve the intellectual barriers that sometimes make his work seem daunting, instead focusing on the profound, practical wisdom embedded in his lived experience and his revolutionary prose. He was more than a philosopher or a naturalist. He was a radical practitioner of life, an innovator in living, a provocateur challenging deeply ingrained assumptions. He was, at his core, a human being wrestling with the timeless questions of freedom, ethical responsibility, and the art of crafting a good life, questions that resonate with startling force in our own tumultuous times. Therefore, this is a journey that starts with the very tangible act of constructing a modest cabin by a pond, but quickly transcends the physical to become something far more transformative, the profound process of building a robust, independent, and unwavering conscience. Thoreau's sojourn at Walden was indeed an extraordinary demonstration of radical self-reliance, yet, more significantly, it represented a powerful rebellion against unthinking conformity, an audacious call to question the prevailing authorities, both external and internal, and an unwavering insistence on living a life guided by one's deepest convictions. It is about the profound awakening to what it truly means to be alive, to choose your path deliberately, and to cultivate an inner compass that points not towards fleeting societal approval, but towards genuine integrity and personal freedom. Join me as we uncover Henry, not as a distant literary giant, but as a vibrant, challenging, and profoundly liberating voice, speaking directly to the very heart of our contemporary search for meaning. When we talk about the cost of something, what do we truly mean? Most often, our minds immediately turn to money, to dollars and cents. But let us pause for a moment and reconsider. What if the real cost of anything isn't measured in currency, but in something far more precious and finite? Imagine, if you will, that the true cost of a thing is the amount of life you must exchange for it, immediately or in the long run. It is the time, the effort, the very essence of your days that you dedicate to acquiring it. Whether you labor directly to produce it, or work for money to buy it, the fundamental exchange remains the same: a portion of your life force. Every hour spent earning $1 is an hour taken from other pursuits, from contemplation, from leisure, from simply being. This isn't just about financial expense, it's about the expenditure of your vital energy, your potential, your finite time on this earth. In our modern world, we are often encouraged to acquire, to possess, to surround ourselves with more and more. We see advertisements for goods that promise comfort, status, or happiness. But how often do we stop to calculate the life cost of these possessions? We purchase items on credit, accumulating what I call golden fetters, chains of debt, that bind us even more tightly to our work. We become slaves to the very systems we create, spending our most productive years to pay for things we perhaps don't truly need, or that diminish in value far quicker than the life energy we traded for them. This relentless pursuit of accumulation often leads to a subtle but pervasive form of bondage, where our days are dictated by the need to maintain our possessions rather than by our deepest desires for freedom and purpose. Consider the distinction between what is truly necessary for life and what we categorize as a luxury. Many of the things we strive for, the comforts we consider essential, are in fact luxuries, items whose absence would not genuinely hinder our existence or well-being. Food, shelter, clothing, and fuel are the four bare necessities, and even these can be supplied with minimal exertion. Everything beyond this becomes a question of choice, and with that choice comes a corresponding life cost. Often, what begins as a convenience swiftly transforms into an indispensable luxury, then a distraction, and finally, an outright impediment to our growth and freedom. We become so entangled in these improvements that we forget the inherent richness of simplicity. The more artificial our lives become, the more we are compelled to work to sustain that artifice, creating an endless cycle of exertion for what is ultimately superfluous. So, let me offer you a challenge, a thought experiment to begin our journey together. If you commute to work each day, consider its true cost. Calculate not merely the fare or the gas money, but the hours spent traveling, the hours you work to earn that fare or gas money, and perhaps even the time spent preparing for that journey, or recovering from its fatigue. Add to that the wear and tear on your mind and body. Now, compare that total sum of life energy to the actual value or necessity of the work you do. Is the exchange truly balanced? Are you getting a fair return on the most valuable currency you possess, your life? This is the central question we must always ask ourselves for every dollar, for every possession, for every pursuit. What portion of your precious, irreplaceable life are you truly spending? Welcome back to our journey of self-discovery and intentional living. In this chapter, titled The Shelter Within, we delve into Thoreau's practical philosophy regarding our most fundamental needs, shelter and clothing. He challenges us to examine the very foundations of our material lives, and asks if our possessions truly serve us, or if we, in fact, serve them. Consider for a moment the profound impact of where and how we live. Thoreau, eager to strip away the unnecessary layers of societal expectation, embarked on a radical experiment. He resolved to build his own dwelling, not as a grand statement of affluence, but as a direct challenge to the overwhelming cost and complexity of modern housing. He demonstrated that a comfortable, functional home need not be a lifelong burden of debt and toil. His simple cabin, built with salvaged materials and his own labor, cost him a mere $28.12. That sum covered the boards, shingles, windows, and nails, a testament to how little is truly required for basic shelter, and a stark contrast to the exorbitant expenses many of us shoulder today. This humble structure was not just a house, it was a physical manifestation of his philosophy, a tool for living, rather than a monument to be maintained. He sought to prove that, by minimizing our external demands, we could maximize our internal freedom. But our obsession with external trappings doesn't end with our homes. It extends, perhaps even more subtly, to the very garments we wear. Thoreau viewed clothing as another layer of conventionality, a kind of false shell that often dictates our behavior and consumes our resources. He observed that many of us spend an inordinate amount of time and money on fashion, on maintaining a particular appearance, rather than focusing on the intrinsic value or utility of our clothes. Think about it. How much of your wardrobe is truly essential for warmth, protection, and modesty, and how much is dedicated to social signaling, status, or fleeting trends? Thoreau argued that our garments often become more than mere coverings, they become a uniform of conformity, an unspoken expectation that traps us. We dress not for ourselves, but for others, becoming slaves to the tailor's whim or the latest societal dictate. This constant pursuit of the new, the fashionable, the acceptable, drains our pockets and our precious time, pulling us away from more meaningful pursuits. This brings us to one of Thoreau's most potent insights, the danger of becoming tools of our tools. We build intricate machines, elaborate houses, and accumulate vast wardrobes, initially to serve our needs. But gradually, imperceptibly, these very creations begin to demand our attention, our labor, our lives. The house that was meant to shelter us now requires constant maintenance, mortgage payments, and worry. The car that was meant to transport us now demands insurance, repairs, and fuel. The fashionable clothes that were meant to adorn us now necessitate endless washing, mending, and replacement. We spend our days working to acquire and maintain these things, rather than living freely within them. We become cogs in the very system we created, serving the material rather than being served by it. Thoreau's experiment at Walden was a bold declaration against this servitude. By constructing a simple dwelling, by wearing only what was truly necessary and durable, he freed himself from the endless cycle of acquiring and maintaining. This deliberate simplification wasn't about austerity for austerity's sake, but about liberating the spirit. He recognized that the greatest spiritual benefits often arise from a smaller physical footprint. When we shed the weight of excessive possessions and the burdens of unnecessary expense, we create space. We gain time. We reclaim our energy. This newfound freedom allows us to turn our attention inward, to cultivate our minds, to connect with nature, and to pursue our authentic passions. It's about choosing a life where our resources, our time, our money, our mental energy are invested in experiences, growth, and genuine human connection, rather than in the endless acquisition of things. The true shelter, Thoreau suggests, is not found in the grandest house or the finest garments, but within a liberated mind and an unburdened spirit. It is the peace and clarity that comes from understanding how little we truly need to live a rich and fulfilling life. Welcome to Chapter 3, Waking Up. In this section, we delve into Thoreau's profound philosophy of living deliberately and the transformative power of the morning mindset. It's a call to truly awaken, not just to the day, but to life itself. Perhaps the most famous declaration from Walden sets the stage for our discussion. Thoreau writes, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." This wasn't merely a desire for solitude, it was a profound commitment to intentional living. To live deliberately means to strip away the non-essential layers that often clutter our existence, to focus only on what truly matters. It's about consciously choosing how we spend our time, our energy, and our thoughts, rather than being swept along by habit or external pressures. Thoreau sought to understand life's fundamental lessons, to engage with its core truths, and to ensure that his time on earth was spent in meaningful exploration, not in a passive, unexamined existence. He wasn't content to merely pass through life. Instead, he expressed a vibrant desire to suck out all the marrow of life. This powerful image contrasts sharply with a passive or superficial existence. It's an urgent plea to extract every bit of essence, every lesson, every deep experience that life offers. To suck out the marrow means to engage fully, to be present, to delve beneath the surface of things. It means choosing an active, participatory role in our own lives, rather than allowing ourselves to simply be acted upon. Thoreau wanted to confront life head-on, to truly learn what it was about, rather than accepting second-hand notions or conventional wisdom without question. He aimed to live so thoroughly and deeply that he left no experience unexplored, no truth unexamined. This philosophy of deliberate living is deeply intertwined with Thoreau's understanding of morning. For him, morning is far more than just a time of day, it's a symbolic state of mind, a constant opportunity for spiritual and intellectual awakening. He believed that the spirit of morning, that freshness, clarity, and potential for renewal, is something we can cultivate at any hour. Every day offers us a chance to begin anew, to shake off the inertia of the past, and to approach the world with fresh eyes and invigorated senses. It's a continuous invitation to rise above the mundane, and to reconnect with our higher faculties, seeing each moment as a potential dawn for our consciousness. To maintain this vital morning state of mind, Thoreau implicitly advocates for creating a personal sanctuary, a daily ritual of mental purification. He suggests that we deliberately carve out time and space away from the constant barrage of external noise. This means distancing ourselves from the endless cycle of news, from idle gossip, and from the petty distractions that clamor for our attention. Instead of immediately engaging with the superficial chatter of the world, we are encouraged to cultivate inner silence. This daily sanctuary is not about escaping reality, but about creating the necessary conditions for deeper engagement with it. It allows us to reflect, to clarify our thoughts, and to listen to our own inner voice, preventing the external world from prematurely dulling the freshness and potential of our morning spirit. By protecting this inner space, we empower ourselves to greet each moment with intention, clarity, and the full vitality of an awakened mind, ensuring we are truly living, rather than simply existing. This section, then, is a powerful reminder to choose awareness over apathy, intention over inertia. It's a timeless invitation to truly wake up, to live fully and deeply, and to protect the precious dawn of our consciousness from the noise and distractions of the world. As I lived by Walden Pond, the matter of reading, and what we choose to read, often occupied my thoughts. We live in a world overflowing with printed words, yet how often do we truly nourish our minds? Many approach reading merely as a pastime, a fleeting amusement, much like one might scroll through trivial updates today. This easy consumption, this constant craving for the superficial, costs us more than just time. It diminishes our capacity for true, sustained thought. We are so quick to snatch up the latest news, to chase after fleeting headlines, believing this keeps us informed. But what lasting wisdom do these daily digests impart? They often serve only to distract, to clutter the mind with transient concerns, pulling our attention away from deeper, more enduring truths. It is like feeding the soul on froth when genuine sustenance waits. True reading, the kind that truly challenges and profoundly enriches us, demands significant effort and exertion equal to that which the author poured into its creation. It's a noble exercise, a mental discipline akin to an athlete's rigorous training. Why then do we so readily shy away from this invigorating effort? We often settle for what is simple, what demands little, mistakenly equating ease with enlightenment. This intellectual laziness leaves our minds unexercised and less capable. Consider the magnificent, enduring books of the past, the profound classics, the challenging philosophical texts, the timeless poetry. These are not light reading to be idly skimmed. These are the treasured wealth of the world, vast legacies of wisdom painstakingly preserved and passed down across generations. They embody the distilled thoughts and experiences of humanity's greatest minds, presented for us like sacred oracles. To genuinely engage with them is to converse with heroes, with thinkers whose insights continue to illuminate our path, challenging us to see further and think deeper. Yet to truly hear these voices, to fully absorb their profound wisdom, we need more than just open eyes. We need a receptive mind, and crucially we need silence. In the quiet solitude, away from the clamor of trivialities and the insistent demands of the immediate, our thoughts can truly begin to breathe and expand. It is in this precious stillness that the seeds of complex ideas, planted by challenging texts, can take root, germinate, and grow into genuine understanding. We must allow ample time for patient reflection, for careful digestion, for the words to sink beyond mere comprehension and transform into deeply integrated personal insight. This is precisely why a simple life, intentionally free from unnecessary distractions, provides such fertile ground for true intellectual growth. Just as I sought to simplify my outward existence, so too should we simplify our inward landscape. By carefully choosing what we invite into our minds, by consciously turning away from the constant barrage of easy, forgettable content, we cultivate a sacred space for genuine contemplation. It is far more beneficial to read one truly difficult, profound book with sustained, deep attention, allowing its complex ideas to fully resonate within you, than to passively consume countless pages of superficial material. One such challenging text, wrestled with and truly understood, will expand your perspective, sharpen your intellect, and deepen your soul in ways that endless scrolling through fleeting information never possibly can. It is a slow, deliberate process, but the rewards are immeasurable. A mind truly awake, capable of independent, critical thought, and intimately connected to the enduring wisdom of the ages. Let us not neglect this highest duty of mental cultivation, for in challenging our minds, we truly come alive and fulfill our potential. Many believe that being alone in the woods, far from human company, must lead to loneliness. Yet, for me at Walden Pond, this couldn't be further from the truth. What some might call isolation, I discovered to be a profound form of solitude, a state entirely distinct from the ache of loneliness. In the deep stillness of the forest, I found myself never truly alone. The sounds of the wind rustling through the pines, the rhythmic patter of rain on my cabin roof, the ancient presence of the trees themselves, these were not merely background noises. They were companions, weaving a tapestry of life around me. The wild inhabitants, the scurrying squirrels, the darting birds, the cautious deer, all contributed to a vibrant community. My perception of being alone dissolved, replaced by a sense of belonging to this larger, wilder world. The very air seemed to hold a presence, connecting me to something vast and eternal. How, then, could one feel lonely? My simple cabin arrangements reflected a deeper philosophy about human connection. I kept 3 chairs. One was for solitude, my own quiet contemplation, my inner life. 2 chairs were for friendship, for rare, intimate conversation with a truly kindred spirit. And 3 chairs were for society, for the occasional, necessary interaction with the wider world, a world I often found too noisy and demanding. This metaphor underscored my belief that true society for me required a deliberate choice, not an obligation. I was content to entertain my own thoughts, to sit with myself, finding profound enrichment in that space. The chairs symbolized a spectrum of connection, and most often, I found myself occupying the first chair, content in my chosen solitude. Detaching from the constant clamor of human society, from its expectations and trivialities, proved immensely beneficial to both my mind and spirit. Conventional wisdom often suggests that happiness is found in crowds, in constant activity, but I discovered the opposite. Away from the pressures of conformity, my thoughts grew clearer, my senses sharper. The mental clutter that accumulates from endless social engagements and gossip began to dissipate, leaving space for genuine introspection. This deliberate stepping back allowed for profound spiritual renewal, a deeper understanding of my own nature, and a connection to something larger than myself. It was a kind of mental hygiene, cleansing the soul of societal dust. Therefore, what many perceive as isolation or a lack of company, I reframed entirely. It was not a void to be feared or filled, but an expansive opportunity. It became a fertile ground for self-discovery, for listening to the quiet whispers of my own conscience, for exploring the depths of my own being without external distractions or judgments. This detachment allowed me to truly know myself, beyond the roles and expectations imposed by others. My time at Walden taught me that one can be physically alone, yet deeply connected, and one can be amidst a crowd, yet feel profoundly lonely. True company, true connection, begins with a robust, self-sufficient spirit that can find sustenance within itself, and then, joyously, in the natural world around it. This solitude was not an escape from life, but a deeper immersion into its very essence, a pathway to becoming more fully alive. My field was about 2.5 acres, and I mainly planted beans, with some potatoes, corn, and peas alongside them. My purpose wasn't to compete with farmers or to earn a profit, but to conduct an experiment. I wanted to learn what the earth could yield, how to truly live, and what raw materials a person might need for a richer, more meaningful kind of labor. I was, in a sense, trying to cultivate myself, using the earth as my teacher and my bean rows as a classroom. It was an immense satisfaction to watch those beans emerge from the soil. They were not merely plants, they were my companions in solitude. Early in the morning, often before sunrise, I would head to my field. Often barefoot, I felt the cool, dew-kissed earth beneath my soles, a direct connection to the soil that would feed me. My tool was a hoe, and my task was to keep the weeds at bay, to give my beans the freedom to thrive. The hoeing was a rhythmic, almost hypnotic dance. With steady strokes I would turn the earth, the sound of the blade against the soil echoing the solitude around me. Each swing was a meditation, a gentle affirmation of life. The bean leaf unfolded its 2 fleshy lobes, responding to the sun and the moisture, and I became acutely aware of its life cycle, its struggle, and its quiet triumph. This was a labor that stretched from morning till noon, sometimes even beyond, a continuous, solitary vigil. This manual labor was not a means to an end in the typical sense of earning money. It was a discipline, a training, almost a ritual. It grounded me, forcing my thoughts from the abstract to the immediate reality of soil, seed, and sun. Every weed pulled was a small victory, not just over nature but over any tendency towards idleness or distraction within myself. It was through this simple, repetitive act that I felt most alive and most connected to the fundamental processes of existence. In tending my field, I found myself unwittingly drawn into a deeper relationship with the earth, much like a Trojan horse drawing its unsuspecting inhabitants into a new reality. Agriculture, even on my small scale, made me feel like an ancient settler, tied to the soil, invested in its cycles. It bound me to the very ground beneath my feet, creating a sense of belonging and responsibility that I hadn't fully anticipated. The earth, in its generosity and its demands, became an inseparable part of my daily life and my inner landscape. I found profound joy in observing the slow, deliberate unfolding of life. The way the bean plants stretched towards the sun, the intricate patterns of their leaves, the subtle changes day by day, it was a constant wonder. This simple act of watching things grow slowly, deliberately, taught me patience and an appreciation for the subtle forces of nature. It was a privilege to witness the infancy of creation, right there in my own field. More than just providing food for my body, my bean field provided sustenance for my spirit. It cultivated not just crops, but qualities within me: perseverance, attentiveness, and a deep, quiet contentment. It was a living testament to the idea that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in the richness of experience and the profound connection one can forge with the natural world. My humble bean field, with its rows of green, became a universe unto itself, a place where I learned the profound lessons of life directly from the earth. We all carry within us a wildness, a primitive yearning for connection with the untamed parts of existence. I recall my own youth, spending many hours in the woods, gun in hand, feeling an almost primal urge to pursue and conquer the wild creatures around me. There was a raw, instinctive pleasure in the chase, a sense of belonging to the forest's rugged reality. Indeed, I often felt a strange, almost savage affinity for the beasts I hunted, as if a part of my own nature resonated with theirs. There was a time when I could kill a woodchuck or a squirrel without a second thought, merely for the sport, or to satisfy a passing craving for wild meat. Yet even then, a subtle shift was taking place within me. A new sensibility began to awaken, a quiet voice that questioned the impulse to kill. I found myself increasingly unable to take the life of any creature, without feeling a profound regret, a sense of guilt that lingered long after the act. It was as if an invisible, higher law was gradually asserting its presence, gently guiding me away from these more primitive instincts. The wildness in my own nature was not disappearing, but it was being refined, drawn towards a more contemplative and less destructive path. The joy of observing, of simply being present with the forest's inhabitants, began to far outweigh the fleeting thrill of the hunt. This evolving awareness extended to every aspect of my life, including the very food I consumed. I began to ponder the impact of what we eat on our spirits and our capacity for higher thought. It seemed to me that a simpler, purer diet led to a clearer mind and a more sensitive spirit. The act of eating meat, for instance, felt increasingly barbaric, as if it dulls our finer perceptions and connects us to a lower, more brutal part of existence. Could it be that our physical consumption directly influences our spiritual clarity? A plain, wholesome diet, free from unnecessary luxuries, leaves the body lighter, the senses sharper, and the mind more receptive to subtle truths. It liberates our vital energy, rather than weighing it down. And so, this idea of refinement, of channeling our inner resources, applies not only to food but to all our appetites. We often speak of chastity, typically associating it with a narrow definition, but I mean it in a broader, more profound sense as the conservation and elevation of our vital energy. It is about maintaining a certain purity of mind and body, not through suppression, but through redirection. Instead of allowing our life force to be dissipated by every passing desire or fleeting sensation, we can gather and focus it. This preserved energy, this cultivated vitality, becomes a powerful force for intellectual insight, spiritual growth, and genuine creative expression. It allows us to truly concentrate, to delve deeper into thought, and to perceive the world with greater clarity. Consider the body itself, this physical form we inhabit. It is more than just a vessel for consumption. It is, in essence, a sacred temple for the mind, a living sanctuary for our spirit. To treat it with reverence, to keep it pure and healthy, is to honor the very seat of our consciousness. A mind housed in a body that is well tended and unburdened by excesses is far more capable of reaching toward higher aspirations. This purity allows for a natural cleansing of the spirit, enabling us to transcend mere physical existence and connect with the more subtle, elevated aspects of life. Ultimately, this journey is about moving beyond a life dominated by consumption, towards one of genuine creation and spiritual awakening. By consciously choosing to refine our appetites, by acknowledging and then elevating our primitive instincts, we free ourselves. We transform the raw energy that might otherwise be spent on lower desires into a vibrant source for higher pursuits. We become less consumers of the physical world and more creators of thought, beauty, and understanding. This is the essence of higher laws: to recognize the divine potential within us, to cultivate it through deliberate choices, and to live a life that reflects our deepest, most enlightened aspirations, connecting us to a universal truth that elevates us all. One day, while splitting wood, my attention was suddenly drawn to a furious battle unfolding right before my eyes. It wasn't between men, but between ants, armies of them, red against black, fighting with a ferocity that seemed utterly human. I knelt down, utterly captivated, as I watched a colossal red ant locked in mortal combat with two large black ones. They were wrestling, biting, grappling, rolling over each other on the chips. One of the black ants, having severed the head of its adversary, still carried it around like a trophy. It was a sight as horrifying and glorious as any ancient battle depicted by Homer. These were not mere insects. These were warriors imbued with the same martial spirit and desperate courage as any human soldier. I observed individual ants, scarred and bleeding, yet fighting on with incredible tenacity. They tore at each other, limb from limb, in what was clearly a war of extermination. Some carried off their dead and wounded comrades from the field, while others, dismembered and dying, continued to bite fiercely. I even saw one valiant red ant, having lost a leg and sustained numerous other wounds, refuse to yield, fighting on for a full half-hour before succumbing to its injuries. It was like witnessing a miniature Concord fight, or an epic clash of empires, an Austrian, Prussian, and Russian battle, all condensed onto my woodpile. What caused this conflict? Was it a dispute over territory? A struggle for slaves, as some species of ants are known to practice? The parallels to human warfare were chillingly clear. The same passions, the same heroism, the same senseless brutality, all played out on a scale I could barely comprehend, yet entirely recognizable. I brought some of these valiant combatants into my house for closer observation under a microscope. Their wounds were grotesque, their struggles pitiful, yet their determination remained. It struck me that this brutal struggle, this willingness to die for a cause however tiny, was deeply ingrained in the fabric of existence, mirroring the grandest human endeavors and conflicts. Beyond the intensity of the ant war, life at Walden Pond often presented quieter, yet equally profound, encounters. The wild creatures were my true neighbors, and their daily lives offered a constant lesson in untamed existence. The mouse that scurried across my floor, the partridge that led her brood through the undergrowth, the woodchuck that burrowed beneath my cabin, they lived their lives without the anxieties and complications that burden human society. Perhaps the most engaging of these encounters was my recurring game of hide and seek with a loon on the pond. This magnificent bird, with its eerie, echoing laugh, was a true wild spirit. When it would surface, emitting its mocking cry, I would take to my boat, trying to pursue it. But the loon was far too clever, too agile. As I paddled furiously, it would dive, only to resurface an incredible distance away, often right behind me, its laugh ringing out across the water as if to say, "You still there?" It was a game of wits, a challenge to my human ingenuity against its primal instinct and intimate knowledge of the pond's depths. Its dives were incredibly long, lasting minutes, and it would emerge silently, almost magically, sometimes even swimming underwater from one pond to another. I would paddle for hours, trying to anticipate its movements, but the loon always outsmarted me. Its wildness was its strength, its complete self-possession its shield. It never seemed hurried or worried, just effortlessly wild. It was a creature perfectly adapted to its environment, living without fuss or pretension, fully present in its own magnificent existence. These brute neighbors, from the warring ants to the elusive loon, served as constant reminders. They lived out their dramas, pursued their instincts, and endured their struggles, entirely independent of human concerns. Nature, in its grand indifference and enduring vitality, continued its cycle, providing a powerful perspective on the often overblown anxieties and conflicts of humankind. The wild world carried on, splendidly untamed, offering a quiet constancy against the ever-changing tide of human affairs. As winter's grip began to loosen, a profound transformation unfolded at Walden Pond, signaling not just a change in season, but a deep spiritual awakening for the landscape and for me. The pond, long bound by thick ice, started its magnificent, tumultuous shedding. You could hear it, a sound unlike any other, the ice booming and cracking, an almost artillery-like roar echoing across the water. It wasn't a gentle whisper, but a long-drawn, vibrating sound, sometimes like the sudden, sharp crack of a distant gun, sometimes like the deep, resonant groans of a giant stirring from a profound, millennia-long sleep. You could feel the sheer power in it, a sense of vast, geological forces at work, as the entire expanse of the pond seemed to sigh and heave, breaking free from its frozen silence. These were the living voices of the earth, loud and sonorous, speaking of liberation. These were the sounds of the earth itself drawing a new breath, exhaling the old season, and ushering in a rebirth. This powerful, visceral experience of the pond thawing became for me a profound metaphor for personal transformation. Just as the ice, formed from the stagnant cold of winter, gave way to the fluid, living waters beneath, so too can the dormant parts of our own spirits awaken. It felt as though the very crust of my own being, perhaps hardened by routine, by ingrained habits, or by the chill of indifference, was cracking and melting away. This shedding was not a loss, but a liberation, revealing the vital currents of insight and feeling that flow ceaselessly within us. Each booming crack, each splintering sheet of ice, was a vivid reminder that stagnation is temporary, and renewal is an inherent promise of existence, both in nature and in the human soul. We are called to shed our own spiritual winters, to let the light penetrate and melt away whatever prevents our true essence from flowing freely. This annual spectacle powerfully illustrates the cyclical nature of life. We witness not an ending, but a necessary dynamic transition, a continuous process of dying and being born again. Winter's stillness, its quiet dormancy, is not a final death, but a crucial prelude, a period of gathering strength and potential, only to burst forth with irresistible, vibrant life in the spring. The earth does not merely endure, it perpetually recreates itself, shedding its old skin like a living organism. There's an undeniable hope embedded in this cycle, a deep reassurance that even after the deepest chill, the longest night, warmth and life will inevitably return. It's a testament to the indestructible spirit of nature, and by extension, our own resilience. The sap rises, the ice melts, the birds return, and with them, a fresh wave of optimism washes over the soul, reminding us that every apparent conclusion is simply a turning point, a new beginning waiting to unfold. To truly observe this process, to listen intently to the elemental language of the thawing pond, is to feel profoundly connected to something larger than oneself, to the very pulse of creation. It affirms that the spirit of life is ceaseless, always pushing towards growth, always moving towards new beginnings, always reaffirming its own incredible vitality. We are, each of us, an integral part of this grand, ongoing narrative of change and renewal, always in motion, always evolving, always capable of transformation. Every day holds the potential for a new dawn, a fresh perspective, an opportunity to shed what no longer serves us and embrace the vibrant, flowing currents of existence. Indeed, as we journey through this continuous cycle of life, ever seeking deeper meaning and understanding, we come to grasp a fundamental, expansive truth, that the sun is but a morning star. It signifies that even the brightest light we know is merely the beginning, a promise of infinitely more light, infinitely more potential, and an unending succession of glorious dawns yet to come. Our journey, like the sun's, is eternal. We spent time immersed in the self-reliant life at Walden Pond, exploring the depths of individual freedom and the profound simplicity of existence. Now, we shift our gaze from the solitude of personal introspection to the bustling, often complex, arena of societal engagement. This transition brings us to a crucial chapter in Thoreau's philosophy, where he grapples with the moral obligations that arise when the individual conscience confronts the machinery of the state. It was a turbulent period in American history, a time deeply scarred by profound moral crises that demanded an answer from every citizen. Specifically, the shadow of the controversial Mexican-American War loomed large, a conflict Thoreau viewed as an act of aggression driven by expansionist desires and, fundamentally, a means to extend the abominable institution of slavery. This war, coupled with the ongoing, widespread acceptance of slavery itself, formed the urgent backdrop against which Thoreau penned his powerful reflections on civil disobedience. He saw these issues not as abstract political debates, but as direct affronts to human dignity and justice, demanding an active response from anyone claiming to be a moral agent. Thoreau viewed government not as an inherent good or a divine right, but as a mere expedient, a practical tool, often an imperfect one, for managing the affairs of society. He observed that this tool, intended to serve the people and facilitate their well-being, too frequently became a source of abuse, distortion, and inefficiency. Rather than acting consistently for the benefit of all, he argued, government often operates at the behest of a powerful few, driven by its own bureaucratic inertia, or simply by popular opinion without moral grounding. He famously asserted that government is best which governs least. He even went further, imagining a future where a truly free and enlightened society might evolve to function effectively, perhaps even more justly, without the need for any formal government at all. For him, the ultimate goal was not a better government, but a government that ceased to be an obstacle to individual moral action, allowing each person the greatest possible freedom to act according to their own informed principles, rather than blindly following mandates. In the face of what he perceived as profound governmental injustice and moral compromise, Thoreau champions the inherent power and autonomy of the individual. He introduces the profound and radical concept of the majority of one. This isn't merely about personal dissent or isolated protest. It's about the individual citizen recognizing their own conscience, their innate sense of right and wrong, as a moral authority that is superior to any legislative body, any democratic majority, or even the most ancient tradition. He firmly believed that the only obligation a person truly has is to do what they believe, with deep conviction, is right and just, regardless of what man-made laws, societal pressures, or popular opinion might dictate. For Thoreau, genuine democracy was not simply a system of majority rule. It was a profound respect for the individual moral choice, a system where the collective decision must always be tempered by the unwavering moral compass of each person. He refused to surrender his conscience to the keeping of the state, urging others to claim the same moral sovereignty. This brings us to the very heart of his groundbreaking argument, the unwavering assertion that individual conscience is inherently, undeniably superior to man-made legislation when those laws violate fundamental moral principles. When laws are unjust, when they compel us to participate in or condone wrongdoing, such as supporting the institution of slavery, or funding an aggressive and immoral war, then our highest duty is not to passively obey, but rather to actively resist. He challenged the prevailing notion of passive acceptance, where citizens become mere instruments of an unjust system. It is not enough, he contended, to simply wish for a better government, or to passively vote for change. One must, at times, take active steps, however personally inconvenient or challenging, to withdraw one's support and cooperation from an immoral system. True respect for the law, Thoreau argued with passionate conviction, means understanding its moral limits and refusing to become an instrument of its corruption. This act of civil disobedience, he contended, is not an act of destructive rebellion, but a profound demonstration of loyalty to a higher moral order, a testament to the enduring power and necessity of individual integrity in the face of collective error. It is, in essence, the duty to ensure one's life is a counter-friction to stop the machine of injustice. Friends, we arrive now at a crucial juncture in our journey, one that asks us to deeply consider our place within the systems that govern our lives. Imagine, if you will, the government not as some benevolent guiding hand, but as a vast, intricate machine. Like any machine, it has its levers and cogs, its power and its purpose. But what happens when this machine, intended to serve justice and liberty, instead begins to grind out injustice? What is our responsibility when the very machinery meant to uplift us, instead presses down upon our conscience? Thoreau observes that all machines, no matter how grand, are prone to friction. And when the governmental machine, through its policies and actions, such as the Mexican-American War or the institution of slavery, is actively engaged in wrongdoing, it demands not just our obedience, but our complicity. This machine, he argues, has its spring, its pulley, its ropes, its crank, and its own peculiar arrangement of parts. But the real question is, where is the friction box? Where is the individual conscience, the spark of moral judgment, that can resist its destructive momentum. When the law compels you to be an agent of injustice, to another Thoreau challenges, then I say, break the law. For too long, people have served the state with their bodies and minds, but rarely with their conscience. They are the great mass of men, our soldiers, militia, jailers, constables. They march to the tune of the same old music, often acting against their better judgment, their innate sense of right and wrong. They are not acting as moral agents, but as cogs, wooden men, automatons following orders. Such obedience makes them shadows of humanity rather than true men. This brings us to a fundamental distinction. What does it mean to be a good citizen, and what does it mean to be a good man? All too often, these two ideals clash. The state defines a good citizen as one who adheres to its laws, supports its institutions, and does not obstruct its operations. But a good man, as Thoreau posits, is guided by a higher law, by the dictates of his own conscience, by an unyielding commitment to justice and truth. When the law of the state contradicts the law of one's own moral compass, which path must a man of principle choose? The danger lies in an undue, almost superstitious, respect for law. We are taught to revere the law, to view it as inherently sacred, simply because it is the law. But this reverence, when blind, can lead us down a perilous path. It can lull us into a dangerous complacency, allowing us to rationalize our complicity in grave injustices. When we prioritize the legal over the moral, when we fear the consequences of breaking an unjust law more than we fear the consequences of upholding it, we become instruments of oppression ourselves. We outsource our morality to the state, effectively surrendering our most vital faculty, our conscience. Therefore, when the machine of government is so structured that it demands you to be an agent of injustice, even if only by silently allowing it to function, then the time has come for counter-friction. Your life, Thoreau insists, must be the counter-friction to stop the machine. It's not enough to simply disapprove. It's not enough to wish for change. Your very existence, your moral stand, must become the resistance that grinds the gears to a halt, or at least makes them screech and groan under the weight of injustice. What does this counter-friction look like in practice? It's not necessarily about violence or grand revolutions. For Thoreau, it begins with individual acts of non-cooperation. If I devote myself to other pursuits and contemplations, he explains, I must first see, at least, that I do not pursue them sitting upon another man's shoulders. I must get off him first. This means withdrawing your support, your silent consent, your complicity. It might mean refusing to pay taxes that fund unjust wars or oppressive institutions. It means choosing conscience over convenience, moral integrity over legal obligation. It means stepping out of the line of passive obedience and standing firm on the ground of principle. Even a single individual, standing firmly on their moral conviction, can be a powerful force. Imagine 1,000 men, or 100, or 10, or even one honest man, refusing to keep slaves, or to send money for war, and locked up in the county jail for it. This simple act of defiance, this profound rejection of the state's unjust demands, would be the true abolition of slavery and war. For it is not the size of the resistance, but the moral weight of the conviction behind it, that ultimately shakes the foundations of a corrupt system. In essence, Thoreau's message is an urgent call for personal accountability. To truly exist within a corrupt system without becoming part of it means to actively choose conscience over custom, morality over legality. It means cultivating the courage to be that friction, that solitary voice or collective stand that reminds the machine of its true purpose, or forces it to grind to a halt when it strays too far from justice. It is in this courageous act of individual moral sovereignty that we truly embody what it means to be a man, not merely a citizen. Here Thoreau recounts a pivotal experience that brought his philosophy into sharp relief, a night spent behind bars. His refusal to pay a poll tax, a simple act of defiance, illuminated the very essence of civil disobedience. For 6 years, he had withheld this tax, seeing it as an endorsement of a government that supported slavery and waged an unjust war against Mexico. He believed it was not enough to merely voice disapproval. One must withdraw their practical allegiance to such a state. And so, one pleasant summer evening, As he was returning from the shoemaker's, he was intercepted by the tax gatherer, who also happened to be the local constable. Thoreau was given a choice: pay the tax or go to jail. His principles left him no option. He chose jail. Entering the small, stone-built Concord prison felt oddly familiar, as if he had always been meant to be there. He was led into a cell already occupied by a man suspected of burning a barn, a fellow prisoner who, despite his circumstances, proved to be good-natured and conversational. They chatted through the night, exchanging stories and perspectives. Thoreau found himself observing the prison walls, the iron door, and the barred window, not with despair, but with a curious, almost scientific interest. He noted the stark difference between the state's limited power and the expansive reach of his own mind. The state could only seize his body, imprison his physical self, but his thoughts, his principles, his true essence, remained untouchable, free to wander beyond the stone walls. This confinement, ironically, made him feel freer than he often did walking the streets of Concord. Outside, he often felt trapped by societal expectations, by the subtle pressures to conform. But within the jail, stripped of these external demands, he was able to experience a profound mental liberty. The state, he realized, was not truly challenging him, but merely playing a foolish game with his body, like boys rattling an empty tin can. He woke the next morning refreshed, having slept soundly. As he looked out through the window at the familiar village and the distant fields, he felt a strange sense of distance from his townsfolk. They seemed to him to be slumbering, walking in a kind of dream, oblivious to the deeper moral questions that stirred his own conscience. They were outside, physically free, yet in a way, more confined by their unexamined lives and quiet acquiescence. Later that morning, without his knowledge or consent, someone paid his tax. He was then released, much to his slight annoyance, as he hadn't planned to leave so soon. He rejoined his huckleberry-picking companions, continuing his day as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet, something profound had occurred. His night in jail had been a crucial lesson, both for him and, he hoped, for those who would hear his story. His experience underscored the potency of passive resistance. By denying the state even a small sum, by refusing to cooperate with injustice, he demonstrated that an individual, standing on principle, holds a power that no institution can genuinely suppress. The state, he argued, relies on the cooperation, however passive, of its citizens. When that cooperation is withheld, when just men are willing to face the consequences of their conscience, the state's authority begins to crumble. Truth, he concluded, is far more resilient than any physical barrier. Confinement can imprison the body, but it cannot bind the spirit or silence the voice of conviction. A single night in a cell had not diminished his resolve, rather it had sharpened his understanding of the true nature of freedom and the enduring strength of a principled stand against injustice. Having explored Thoreau's profound reflections, you might ponder, how can these 19th-century insights truly reshape your 21st-century existence? The answer lies in action. This section offers a 7-day experiment, designed to bring Walden's spirit directly into your contemporary life, challenging you to observe, simplify, and engage with the world more deliberately. For your first 2 days, we begin with a news detox, a digital fast. Thoreau saw daily news as trivial gossip, distracting from essential truths. For Monday and Tuesday, disconnect from digital noise. Put away your phone, close news tabs, resist social media. Be present, observe your immediate surroundings without external chatter. This fosters intentional focus, freeing your mind from the information age's ceaseless demands, much as Thoreau freed himself from Concord's idle talk. Wednesday and Thursday focus on solitude and observation, core to Thoreau's life. His walks were profound expeditions. Your challenge is the solitude walk. Find 4 consecutive hours each day, in nature or quieter urban parts, and walk without headphones, podcasts, or calls. Simply be with your thoughts, observe life around you, listen to your environment unmediated. This isn't about a destination, but the journey within and without. Reconnect through your senses, just as Thoreau did on his solitary rambles. By Friday, confront a cornerstone of Thoreau's philosophy: economy. What, he asked, are our true necessaries? What expenses truly serve our purpose, and which are mere societal expectations? Your task is the financial audit. Dive into your spending habits, review statements, categorize expenditures. Consider what genuinely supports your well-being and freedom versus what binds you. This isn't deprivation, but intentionality. Identify at least one recurring expense you deem unnecessary to reduce or eliminate and simplify your financial landscape. Finally, as the week closes, we arrive at civil disobedience. Thoreau believed an awake individual cannot passively participate in injustice. For Saturday and Sunday, your challenge is the act of conscience. Reflect on your daily life, community, or broader systems. Identify one unjust norm, however small or ingrained, in which you unwittingly participate. This could be a casual comment, supporting an ethically questionable business, or silent compliance. Consciously and actively refrain from participating, or take a small, ethical stand. This isn't about grand revolution, but reclaiming moral integrity, living in alignment with convictions, realizing, as Thoreau did, that one man with a conviction is a majority. This 7-day experiment is not about perfection but awakening. It's an invitation to pause, question, and re-engage with your life with the deliberate intention Thoreau exemplified at Walden Pond. May it spark new insights and inspire a more conscious way of living. Welcome back. We've journeyed through the quiet reflections of Walden Pond and the resolute declarations of civil disobedience. Let's now distill the wisdom of Henry David Thoreau into 3 fundamental, timeless pillars for a more deliberate and meaningful existence. Our first pillar is simplify. Thoreau didn't just suggest tidying up, he challenged us to radically reduce life's external complexities to unlock inner freedom. At Walden, he demonstrated that true wealth isn't measured by possessions, but by how little we need to live fully. Society often ensnares us in a relentless cycle of acquiring and maintaining, diverting our time and energy from what truly matters. By stripping away non-essentials, material goods, unnecessary engagements, or overly elaborate thought patterns, we lessen the friction impeding our progress. This intentional reduction frees our time, energy, and mental space. It allows us to step off the treadmill of societal expectation, reclaim our lives, and pursue authentic callings, rather than being bound by conventional obligations. Moving seamlessly from the external to the internal, our second pillar is solitude. For Thoreau, retreating to the woods was not an escape, but a journey deeper into self-understanding. To truly know the world, we must first know ourselves. Solitude is an active process of befriending your inner self, listening intently to your thoughts, examining values, and understanding motivations. In these quiet moments, away from constant noise, we gain clarity. This introspection allows us to differentiate our genuine desires from those imposed by society. By cultivating a rich inner life, we develop a stronger self, enabling us to engage with the world more thoughtfully and authentically. It's through this self-acquaintance that we understand our place within existence and contribute meaningfully, rather than simply reacting. Finally, we arrive at the third pillar, sovereignty. This principle encapsulates Thoreau's unwavering belief in individual moral authority over external pressures. It's the courageous conviction to trust your inner moral compass above societal norms, governmental decrees, or majority opinion. Thoreau's civil disobedience writings powerfully illustrate this. He argued an individual's conscience is the supreme court, and we have a moral obligation to resist unjust laws and societal expectations, violating our deeply held principles. Sovereignty means living with integrity, aligning actions with personal truth, even when standing alone. It's about owning choices, taking responsibility, and refusing to surrender moral judgment to any external entity. This radical self-reliance isn't arrogance, but a profound commitment to truth and justice, for oneself and the broader human community. It empowers us to live as active, morally responsible citizens. These 3 pillars, simplify, solitude, and sovereignty, offer a profound framework for building a deliberate life. Interconnected, they strengthen each other, inviting us to live more intentionally, authentically, and freely.